Welcome to Cooking Classic. I'm Jane Adonisio, and our guest today is Kim McClendon, Chef Kim.
Hello.
Chef, thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for being a guest in our kitchen.
Thank you. We are here, of course, at Luzerne County Community College's Pagliniti Culinary Institute, where you are not only a graduate, but also a professor. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Well, you know, Jane, I absolutely love cooking. I always say growing up, my passion was always cooking because I have a mom who is 100% Italian, and my dad is half Polish and Lithuanian. So we grew up doing a little bit of cooking in our household. But as I got older, I really started to develop that passion for cooking, and that's when I decided to enroll into the culinary program here at Luzerne County Community College. So I graduated back in 1999, and now I'm very fortunate to say that I am one of the adjunct instructors here at the college.
That's excellent.
Thank you. And you know, I really kind of merit my education that I've gotten at Luzerne County Community College because it has really taught me so much about the culinary world.
Sure, and you're a working chef today?
Yes, I also do a local cooking show at the Rustic Kitchen, Mohegan Sun. I do live cooking shows every Friday and Saturday evening at 7 o'clock. So.
Well, that's exciting. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Tell us, what are we going to make today?
Well, today we're making a chocolate flourless cake, Jane. You know, everyone seems to love chocolate. Sure. I know we love chocolate, but it seems today that so many people have a gluten allergy, and it's finding that right particular recipe that really helps to kind of satisfy that gluten-free craving that we have. So today we're making a chocolate flourless cake, and it's more of a process of emulsification. We're talking about adding that chocolate in, a little bit of tempering. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Okay, well, we're going to learn all about it.
Great.
Cooking Classic will be back in a minute. Welcome back to Cooking Classic. We are here at Luzerne County Community College. Chef Kim is going to whip up a flourless chocolate cake for us. How do we get started?
Okay, well, we're actually kind of doing two things at once here. First, what we're doing is I wanted to just do a double boiler. What a double boiler is nothing more than I have, you know, my large pot here, my large sauce pot. I wanted to just kind of fill it about a quarter of the way with some water, bring it to a boil, turn it off, and then Jane, if you can help me by grabbing my work bowl over here,
sure.
Please. Thank you so much.
Just one?
Just one, please.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm just going to put this right over the top of my pot. So I'm just placing this right over the top of my pot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to melt about 9 tablespoons of butter.
Okay.
So I want to melt this butter first, and I'm just going to add this right into my bowl. Okay, so we're gonna just kind of let that sit there. Again, we do not have the heat on. We're just allowing that just to melt just a little bit, making sure we get all of that butter out of there.
Okay.
And then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to be making a simple syrup. So we know if we were to add some sugar into this mixture, it would be very grainy. We don't want this mixture to be grainy. So that's why we're doing a simple sugar, or a simple syrup. And what we're doing is I'm just simply I took 1 cup of water, and then to this 1 cup of water, I'm going to be adding in 3/4 of a cup of just plain sugar. I'm going to be melting this together and just allowing this to reduce by 1/4. Okay, so we're just going to combine all of this together here, and then while our butter begins to melt, then we're going to go in and we're going to add in some semi-sweet chocolate. Oh, thank you so much. So we're just melting all of this together. Let's take a look at our butter. It's melting very nicely. Now, we want to make sure that our butter is thoroughly going to melt before we incorporate our chocolate here. Because again, this is that process of emulsification. We're kind of bringing these two things together.
What happens if you put the chocolate in too soon?
Sometimes the chocolate will get a little bit hard, and it will also get sometimes a little bit more grainy because of the little bit of that water and that butter. We don't want that to happen. So have you ever melted chocolate and sometimes it's gotten really, really hard?
Yes.
Well, that's a process of emulsification. Exactly. So we're slowly kind of bringing everything together. So that's why it's important that we allow all of that butter to melt first and then add that chocolate. So are you going to ask me how much chocolate am I adding in
Right.
here, Jean? We love chocolate in the kitchen. I'm going to be adding in about 18 ounces of my semi-sweet chocolate in here.
Is that a little bit more than a bag?
It's a little bit more than a bag.
Right, okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit more. It's probably like, I would say like a bag and a half or
Okay.
so. Okay, so our butter looks good. It's melting, looks perfect. So Jean, if you can kindly hand me a whisk, I think we're ready just to put these chocolate chips in here and melt them. Okay. Oh, let's take the smaller one for now. Thank you so much. Okay. So our butter is just about melted. Looks good. And then I'm going to start adding in my chocolate a little bit at a time. So I'm just going to kind of put this in here. Again, make sure that that melts. It looks good. And now, sometimes if you're using, you know, maybe a large saucepan, sometimes what happens is that little bit of residual steam kind of comes under the pan. So what I did is I just have just a small little kitchen cloth here. And in that event, if it does happen, you can always, again, now our pot is off, so we don't have to worry about catching anything on fire. Sometimes what I'll do is just kind of hold my kitchen towel here just to kind of stabilize this, make sure it doesn't go anywhere. So, but we're lucky, it's not really hot today, so we just want to make sure that we kind of combine all of that together. How does that look? Is it starting to look good? Thank you. And then we'll put the rest of that in there and just kind of melt that in. It's starting to come together.
Probably a delicate balance between having the pot off and then adding the chocolate.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And that's why, you know, this process kind of takes a little bit of time, but it's so worth it in the end. Looks perfect. So it's all starting to come together. And then I'll even use my spatula here, making sure that I get all of the sides down in there. Combine all of that together. Looks perfect. Then I'll just go in and then just add the remaining chocolate in there now. Making sure we get all that good stuff out of there. Perfect. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at our simple syrup here. So now while that's sitting there and melting, we're going to take a look at our simple syrup. Now the key is we want to make sure that we really kind of combine all of that sugar together with a little bit of that water. So we want this mixture just to come to a very low boil. Then it's going to come to a simmer. Again, we want this to reduce by a quarter. So it's really important that you don't have that heat up too high, because what happens is if you have that heat up too high, where it's going to boil, it's going to get really hard. We're almost making candy here, so we don't want that to happen. So looks good. Our chocolate looks good. It's melting very nicely. Everything's starting to come together, and now we see that our simple syrup has a little bit of a simmer to it. Looks perfect, and we're almost there. Looks good.
Chef, I know you also do a kids camp here, right?
Yes, I do. I do the actually the kids cooking camp. Every summer we do 2 consecutive weeks of, you know, of kids in the kitchen. And they're usually 9 to 11-year-olds, and we make a little bit of everything in the kitchen. We do, oh my goodness, we do salad dressings, we do homemade pizza, homemade pasta, all different kinds of dishes. Well, thank you. And I'll tell you, this year it was so much fun because the kiddos, you know, as they would go home and make the recipes that we made in class, they would go home and make it with mom and dad and come back and say, hey, Chef Kim, could you taste test this? What do you think? Do I need a little bit of this, a little bit of that? And it's great. We had so much fun. Great. Okay, Jane, so that looks good. So now comes the fun part. Now I'm going to slowly incorporate this simple syrup right into our chocolate here. And again, this simple syrup is what we're using to really kind of, you know, add in that little bit of sweetness here, because we're using the semi-sweet chocolate, this is more of a dark chocolate. We want to add a little more flavor in here. So that's why we're adding this in. Looks good. And again, this is a process. It kind of takes a little bit of time. So all I do is just kind of slowly incorporate that in there.
Patience, right?
That's right. Patience is key here. Absolutely. So we're just kind of combining everything in here. So looks perfect.
And you just have to make sure you stir in the syrup into the chocolate, the butter mixture.
Exactly. And this is actually that emulsification process here. So you see, we don't have any big lumps in here. We're allowing everything to come together, adding that, you know, that simple syrup, and making sure that we heat that simple syrup. If we were just to put a little bit of sugar water in there, it would start to crystallize. So we don't want to do that. But it should really kind of look like the consistency of maybe brownie batter. And that's what I tend to kind of tell everybody. When you're adding all that in there, it should have that nice consistency of a brownie batter. So how does it look? Does it look a little like a brownie batter to you?
It is.
Okay,
it is
perfect. Thank you. Okay, so it looks like we have everything combined. Then I'm just going to go back over here, just take my spatula and make sure that we get all of that delicious goodness into this delicious mixture here. Looks perfect. Okay, so now comes the fun part. So what I like to do is, if I'm doing this at home, what I'll do is I'll just kind of maybe take my bowl over to my countertop here, or let me just move that over there. I'm just going to take this whole thing, move this over to my countertop. Now what I'm going to be adding in here is 6 eggs. So you want this mixture just to kind of cool a little bit.
Right.
We're going to be adding these eggs in. If we add the eggs in too soon, we're going to have scrambled eggs. We don't want that to happen.
They'll cook right inside because that's so hot. Okay.
Exactly. So what I like to do is I just kind of come over to the counter, and again, I'll just take my whisk, just go around just like this, and then just kind of cool that mixture a little bit. We do not want it to cool too quickly. Again, this is that process of tempering. Now, I've got my 6 eggs. They are all at room temperature. Very, very important that they are at room temperature.
Not cold.
Exactly. We don't want to change the temperature here. We want to make sure that we're adding them in at that room temperature.
Do you ever do an ice bath?
You can do an ice bath. Now, if we were making, for say, a souffle, a chocolate souffle, then yes, absolutely, we would do an ice bath. But for this particular recipe, we're adding these eggs in here. We're cooking them in the oven. So that's why we just want to kind of let it go, let it cool, then add our eggs in. So it's a great question. Okay, so I'm just going to try and add my eggs in one at a time. You want to be kind of quick. Oh, thanks, Jane. Thank you. So then we're just going to kind of add them in very quickly here, just like that. Sorry if I get chocolate on you.
Oh, no, that's fine.
And then again, it's really important that you add them in one at a time, slowly incorporating all of those eggs. Really making sure that we, again, tempering this mixture. If we were to dump all these in, we would have scrambled eggs. We don't want that to happen.
Right.
Looks perfect. Let me see how it's starting to thicken just a little bit from those eggs. So put the next one in. Oh, 2 just jumped in there. That's okay. Kind of slowly again incorporate them in. And then, you know, speaking about the children's cooking, this is a great recipe. My husband and I are married. We'll be married 19 years in November.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we have a 14-year-old little girl, and we have a 12-year-old little boy. And we do a lot of cooking at home. This is one of those processes that you can allow your children to kind of help you with in the kitchen.
It's
a
so
lot
much
of fun.
fun.
It is, and it helps them kind of burn off some of that extra energy too.
Right. And understand that good things come to those who wait. Right?
Exactly, absolutely, exactly. Okay, so that looks good. So get that last egg in there. And again, this is going to be probably the consistency of that brownie batter. And then we're just gonna mix that last guy in there. Okay, it's a little bit thicker. And you see the change in a little bit of that consistency. It's nice and shiny, it looks good. So now what we're ready to do is we're actually ready to put this in our ramekins and get ready to bake this.
Okay.
Real simple and easy.
All right, well, we'll get ready and we'll get them in the ramekins and get them in the oven, right?
Okay, perfect, yes.
Okay. Cooking Classic, we'll be right back. You don't want to miss this. Welcome back to Cooking Classic. We are here in the kitchen with Chef Kim. And before the break, we mixed up that batter for the flourless chocolate cake. And then, Chef, you did something really interesting. Besides putting it in the buttered ramekin,
yes.
Tell me about what else you did.
Well, what I did was, Jane, we went and we actually baked this in a water bath. It's really essential when you're making the chocolate flourless cake or even cheesecakes. The key is using that water bath to really thoroughly evenly cook that chocolate flourless cake. It helps to infuse a little bit of moisture, which is going to give us a nice moist chocolate flourless cake, but it also prevents that chocolate flourless cake from cracking as well.
Okay. And all that is a tray with some water in it. You put it right in the oven.
Exactly.
So we are here at the exciting point, and I'm not rushing along to taste the chocolate cake. No, not at all. But here it is, and we are at the point where the ramekin has baked. How long did you bake it?
Yes, we baked this for 50 minutes, and then we took that out of the oven, allowed that to cool. We put it in the refrigerator, allowed it to cool for about an hour or so, making sure that it's nice and cool.
And we're not done yet, because now we have really the exciting topping part.
The fun part now begins.
Okay.
So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be pairing this with a little bit of a ganache, and then we're going to be making some fresh whipped cream to go along with it.
I can't wait.
And some fresh berries and a hint of mint.
Oh my goodness. That
Are you
sounds
ready?
Wonderful. I'm ready.
Okay, well again, like we started the beginning process of the chocolate flourless cake, what we're going to be doing is we're using, that double boiler, but what we're going to be doing is we're first going to start with, again, our stainless steel work bowl, and we're going to be adding into this work bowl a little bit of heavy cream. And when I say a little bit of heavy cream, I want to add in 1 cup of heavy cream. Okay, so we're going to add in our 1 cup of heavy cream. And then to this, we're going to be adding in 8 ounces of our semi-sweet chocolate.
Okay.
So, Jane, can you kindly hand me another whisk, please?
Sure.
Thank you so much. So again, we just kind of want to warm this heavy cream just a little bit. We brought our water to a boil, making sure it's nice and warm, and we're just going to go in and add our chocolate chips in here. And this is what a ganache is. It's just adding in a little bit of that chocolate to a little bit of that butter fat in that heavy cream, which is going to give us a decadent topping for this.
Every step of this recipe has called for the moisture in the water.
Yes, that's right. Yes, exactly. And that's key and essential to really keeping this nice and, moist. Is really going to give us that decadent taste that we have. So we're just going to add that in just a little bit again, making sure that we really kind of incorporate that chocolate, melting it thoroughly. So it's really key again. Same thing when we started this process with making this chocolate flourless cake, making sure that we thoroughly incorporate all of those chocolate chips in here. Looks good. And you can really kind of adjust this to your liking too with the ganache. Really the ganache should really kind of coat the top of your cake. But what we're going to be doing this evening is we are actually going to be putting a little bit of that ganache on the bottom of our plate, placing the chocolate flourless cake on top of that, and then pairing that with the fresh whipped cream and the fresh berries. So.
Wow, that is decadent.
This isn't a dessert that you eat every day. So right is the special occasion dessert.
This is a special occasion.
So again, this process takes a little bit of time. You want to just kind of make sure that you really incorporate all of those chocolate chips in there with that heavy cream. How does it look, Genius? Look okay?
You can't rush that goodness.
That's for sure.
Looks great.
Oh, thank you. And then what I'll do, if you can kindly grab me a spatula, we'll make sure that we really kind of incorporate all this chocolate in here evenly. Looks good. And I'll scrape the sides down. Looks perfect. Make sure that that gets all in there. And then if you wanted to, sometimes I get a question, a lot of people will say, can I add anything to that ganache?
Sure.
If you wanted to make it, not that it's already sweet enough, if you wanted to make it a little bit sweeter, if you wanted to add in a little bit of vanilla, you can also add a little bit of vanilla in there. But I just like the chocolate, and I just like the little bit of heavy cream. I think that's just going to give us a wonderful taste in this ganache. That looks perfect. So now all of our chocolate is melting, kind of bringing everything together. I
just want to remind our viewers too that they can go to luzerne.edu/cooking classic for this recipe, all the recipes, and to watch the shows.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a good resource to have.
That's for sure. And there's so many wonderful recipes. We have so many wonderful chefs here at Luzerne County Community College.
It's a great program.
Absolutely. I've learned so much of this program. And, a lot of times I get that question. A lot of people will say, well, what do you like better? Do you like cooking or do you like baking? And you know what, Jane? I love food. I love both of them.
You love it all.
I do. I love it all. Okay, so how does that look? Does that look good?
Great. It's all
Thank
even.
you.
Yes.
Yes, we've got everything melted. We've got all of our chocolate chips melted in there. And now we're really kind of solely relying on that little bit of butterfat in the heavy cream to thicken this just a little bit. So now what I want to do is I just want to allow this to cool just a little bit, bring this down to room temperature, because again, we're really kind of using this ganache today just as a sauce on the bottom of our plate. So what I'll do is I'm just going to let that sit there for a second. Now, while that's sitting there, we're going to get started on some fresh whipped cream.
Okay.
So this is so simple and so easy to make. All we're going to do is we're just going to start with a little bit of, again, heavy cream. And what I have is just about 3 cups of heavy cream. And what I'm going to add to this heavy cream is just a little bit of powdered sugar. So I'm just going to just kind of pour that in there. Yes. Now, again, you know, we were talking a little bit about that ganache, how I mentioned you can add a little bit of vanilla in there if you'd like. You can go ahead and add a little bit of vanilla, but you're going to see I really like the taste of just the regular whipped cream. Adding a little bit of that powdered sugar, it's just going to give us a wonderful flavor, because again, we've got so much chocolate, we really don't want to add too much sugar to this. So just that 1 tablespoon of our powdered sugar. So now all I'm going to do is just pull up my work bowl. Always make sure that you start on the lowest speed. You never want to turn it to the highest speed. Speaking from experience, actually, our son did that at a very young age. We were making cupcakes, and he actually turned the mixer on, and we had chocolate cake batter all over our kitchen. So I always kind of tell everyone that. So again, we're just starting at that lowest speed, and then gradually adding a little bit more power to that, which is really going to aid in giving us that nice fresh whipped cream. Give us a little bit more volume in there. A little more of that air is going to give us a little bit more volume. So. And then again, if you wanted to add that vanilla in there, you can do that. If you wanted to add, you know, maybe even a little bit of almond extract, whatever kind of flavoring you wanted to add to this, you can absolutely do that. So
it's so simple, though.
It is. It's very, very simple and very easy to make. But again, it's just a wonderful flavor, and it's a wonderful accompaniment on this delicious chocolate flourless cake. So how does it look? Does it look like it's coming together?
It does.
Thank you. Looks perfect. And then I'll just kind of turn it up just a little bit there. It's starting to get a little bit thicker. Looks great. And then again, this process takes a little bit of time, but once you notice that we develop those nice thick peaks in our whipped cream, what I always do is kind of taste it, make sure, you know, it tastes really good. Then you have those nice thick peaks. You can just turn your mixer off, because you can overmix it, so you don't want that to happen. Looks good. It's starting to thicken up. It looks perfect. That's exactly what we want. It's going to kind of look a little bit like a consistency of melted marshmallow, and then we're going to start to get those nice peaks. So once you see that little bit of the consistency of, again, of the melted marshmallow, you're going to see that we're going to now slowly start to develop those nice peaks in that. So that looks absolutely.
See how thick it is.
It's starting to get a little bit thicker. And again, you know, it's also a process. As our chocolate flourless cake, this takes a little bit of time too, but it's definitely worth the wait. That looks good. So then while we're doing this, what I did was I actually prepared a pastry bag, so we can kind of get our pastry bag together. And then I just have a spoon, a little wooden spoon over there, and then we'll just fill our pastry bag. We'll get ready to fill our pastry bag as soon as that whipped cream is finished. And we're almost there. Again, as you see those nice peaks starting to form, we're just about there. So that looks really good. So do you think you can try this when you go home? You think you're going to do it?
I think I can.
You know,
I really do.
It's simple, it's easy to make, but it's so, so good. That looks good. I'm just going to wait just another few, maybe a minute or so, and then we should be good to go ahead and place that onto our plate. Looks good. Okay.
Looks great.
Thank you. So now that looks good. So now I'm just going to go in and just take off our whisk there. I'll just put that over there, and we can just take this right off of here.
Okay.
And we'll just move our mixer over here. Just put that over there so it's out of the way, that big clunky thing. You're welcome. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna get ready to plate this up. So we've got our whipped cream, it looks perfect. We've got a wonderful consistency there. We have our pastry bag. We have got our delicious chocolate flourless cake here. So I'm just going to grab a plate, and I just have a plate here reserved. And all I'm going to do is kind of bring this up here. Now, and sometimes a lot of people will say, you know, when you're bringing that chocolate flourless cake out of the ramekin, it is so hard. I have such a hard time doing this. What I like to do is I like to use an offset spatula, and that's this guy right here. And all I do is just kind of go over the chocolate flourless cake and just kind of go around the sides of our chocolate flourless cake, and kind of helps to pull everything up a little bit. But before we place this on to this plate, what I'm going to do is, if you can just hand me that large serving spoon right there. Right there, perfect, thank you. I'm going to take a little bit of that ganache, that decadent ganache. I'm just going to take a little bit here, and I'm just going to place this right into the center of my plate and do just a little dollop right up the center there. And then I'm just going to take my chocolate flourless cake and just kind of take this and put it on there just like that, okay? And don't worry, it doesn't have to look perfect, and I'll show you why in a second, okay?
And of course, you buttered the ramekin
Exactly,
before.
exactly. And you saw how easily that kind of came out of our ramekin. So what I want to do is I'm just going to take a little bit of that decadent whipped cream here. And anytime that you are filling a pastry bag, you never want to fill it all the way. I always tell everyone, you know, halfway is key. That should be the most amount of whipped cream that you put in there. And even it also applies to frosting too. So we're just going to push everything down, making sure that we get all that air out of there. And then I'm just going to kind of go on the side of my plate here, and I'm just going to do a little bit of that whipped cream just on the side. Thank you. And then I'm going to just take some fresh berries here. So I'm just going to take a little bit of my raspberries. I'll put maybe 2 here on the side of my plate, just like that. And then I want to take a little bit of fresh mint. And I'm going to be picky with my mint here.
After all that, you better be picky with the mint, right?
Exactly. So I just want to do just a little bit on the plate, just like this. And then I want to just do a little bit of powdered sugar on the top. Again, not that we don't have enough sugar on this plate, we want to put a little extra. So what I like to do is I'll just kind of come over here, and then I'll just take a little bit of I'll just do it over here because we've already got that little bit of sugar in there. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of powdered sugar right over the top.
Just dust it.
Yes, just a little bit. And there you have it, is our delicious chocolate flourless cake. What do you think?
That looks amazing.
Thanks, Jane.
Oh my
Thank you so much.
Chef
Thank
Kim,
you.
you are great in the kitchen.
Thank you
I
so
can't wait
much.
to try this at home.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And thank you for being with us on Cooking Classic. You need to put